In a quiet Scottish village, two young lovers return from their honeymoon, only to be found dead days later. As a violent storm rolls in, a mysterious stranger crashes outside their family home, wearing the dead man's watch. Who is he? And who sent him? As the families spiral into suspicion, buried secrets claw their way to the surface, revealing a truth more devastating than the storm itself. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Make sure to watch this video till the end, because in the final moments you'll see the journey from an entirely new perspective. Now let's jump into the story. Rain had kissed the hills of Glenhaven since morning. The village, tucked between sleepy green valleys and silent lochs, was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and their secrets too. Owen McCrae stood outside the weathered barn on his family's farm, his boots buried in mud. The wind tugged at his coat, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the gravel path leading to the Fleming farmhouse next door. Nora Fleming appeared in the distance, her red scarf fluttering like a flag of hope. They had grown up on neighboring farms, playing hide-and-seek in haylofts and sharing stories under starlit skies. Now they were 23, freshly married and full of dreams. They had just returned from their honeymoon, a simple week in Spain filled with sun and laughter. "Ready for the big move?" she asked, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "As ready as I'll ever be," Owen said, offering her a smile. "Still can't believe we got into the same university." "It's fate," she grinned, "or maybe just hard work and stubbornness." That evening, Owen's parents, Diana and Harold, loaded his things into their old pickup. His brother Caleb helped, cracking jokes to hide his emotions. Everyone said goodbye at the university gates in Glasgow, hugs tight and voices shaky. When Owen was left alone, a heavy fear crept in, the kind that makes your stomach twist. But the moment Nora stepped into his dorm room, everything changed. She carried coffee and a smile, and with her presence, the fear vanished. Just like that, the world felt safe again. They studied together, worked part-time jobs, and dreamed of their future. A life of simplicity, books, and morning tea on their own porch. When Nora found out she was pregnant, they cried, happy tears. Everything was finally falling into place. But life is rarely so kind for long. 1 week after returning from their honeymoon, the village woke to a storm. Winds howled across the glen like ghosts seeking shelter. Thunder rolled through the hills and rain crashed against roofs in waves. But that wasn't the only storm brewing. Bill and Moira Fleming had just returned from church with their teenage son, Jamie. He was humming a song in the back seat when his father snapped, "Music these days, and it's just noise. Just no soul in it." "You say that about everything I like," Jamie mumbled. When they reached home, the flashing lights of a police car greeted them. The door stood slightly open. Dread crawled into Moira's chest before a word was spoken. Constable Martin Frey, a young officer who had known the family for years, stood at the doorstep, his cap in hand. His voice shook as he said, "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. Last night, someone broke into Owen and Nora's apartment. They didn't make it." Moira's knees gave out. Bill caught her, but his own face had drained of all color. "What do you mean?" "There must be some mistake. They just got back. We need someone to identify the bodies," Martin said gently. "I understand if it's too much." "No," Bill said firmly, his voice hollow. "She was my daughter. I'll do it." Tears came, even for a man like Bill who rarely showed them. Jamie stood frozen, watching his parents fall apart. Meanwhile, miles away, Owen's mother, Diana, was deep in the woods, walking quietly with her hunting rifle. When she saw Martin approach her through the trees, her heart dropped. She'd seen that look before, the kind that brings no good. "No," she whispered. "Don't say it. I'm sorry, Diana." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood there, unmoving, as the storm rumbled above. Back in the city, far from the weeping homes of Glenhaven, Rory Cairn sat on a bus bench with trembling hands. His clothes were damp, his eyes bloodshot, and in his pocket was a torn photo, a wedding picture of Owen and Nora. He stared at it before tearing it into pieces. A laptop bag lay beside him, full of things that weren't his. Watches, jewelry, even a baby blanket with Nora's name embroidered on the edge. Why did I do it? He muttered to no one. They were just kids. But remorse can't turn back time. Elsewhere, Lucy Fleming, Nora's younger sister, was studying for her nursing exam, unaware of the storm her family had walked into. Caleb McRae, too, was driving back from town, thinking of surprising his brother with a rare bottle of whiskey they both liked. No one was ready for what had happened. No one would ever be ready. As the storm raged on, grief settled over Glenhaven like fog. 2 young lives had been taken, a family was shattered, and a killer was still out there, wandering the same hills that had once heard Owen and Nora's laughter. And this was just the beginning. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. Dark. Clouds hung low over Glenhaven, soaking the fields and flooding the narrow country roads. People stayed indoors, staring out of windows with heavy hearts. News of Owen and Nora's deaths had spread fast. Their story, young love, bright futures, ended too soon, left the village in quiet shock. But someone else had heard the news too. Rory Cairn limped down a muddy path on the edge of the village. His coat was torn, his boots soaked through. He looked like a man running from something, or maybe someone. His hands still trembled, not just from the cold, but from the memory of what he'd done. He kept touching his jacket pocket. Inside was an envelope, smudged and damp, with a postal code written in shaky handwriting. The code belonged to Glenhaven. Half now, half later, he whispered to himself. He said it'd be simple. But it wasn't. Nothing about that night had been simple. Rory had taken a knife and entered Owen and Nora's flat with one purpose: steal what he could and get out. But then Owen had fought back. Then Nora walked in. It all happened so fast, shouting, panic, blood. Rory didn't plan for any of it. Now he was heading to collect what was promised to him, the second half of the money. His body ached, his head spun, and the storm made everything worse. As night fell, Rory spotted headlights in the distance. He crouched behind a hedge, watching as a sleek car slowed and parked. A well-dressed man stepped out and walked into a nearby house. Rory's mind raced. He needed a car fast. 10 minutes later, a Lexus sped away from the scene. Rory was behind the wheel, clenching his jaw, gripping the steering wheel like it might disappear. His leg was bleeding and his vision blurred from withdrawal, but all he could think of was getting to Glenhaven before the storm shut down the roads. Meanwhile, inside the McRae home, Diana was sitting in silence. The fire crackled, but the warmth didn't reach her. Caleb had returned and he was trying to stay strong for her, but he was just as broken. They were so happy, Diana whispered. I saw them off with a smile. How could I have known? None of us knew, Caleb said. This wasn't your fault. Across the village, the Flemings were having no better time. Moira had barely slept and Bill kept replaying his last conversation with Owen in his mind. Jamie, quiet and pale, stayed locked in his room, headphones on. Music was the only thing that helped him escape. That night the power flickered out. In the pitch dark, Jamie looked out the window and saw headlights swerving wildly near the edge of the woods. Moments later, a loud crash. Metal against tree, a horrible screech. He shouted for his parents. Within minutes, the McRaes and Flemings rushed into the storm with flashlights. They found a wrecked car upside down in a ditch. The driver was barely conscious, his face bruised, leg bent the wrong way. Don't move him, Caleb warned, kneeling beside the man. His leg's broken. We can't leave him out here, Bill said. He'll die in this weather. Reluctantly, they carried the stranger back to the McRae house. They laid him on the couch, wrapped him in blankets, and started cleaning his wounds. Claire McRae, Caleb's wife and a schoolteacher, fetched her first aid kit. He's lucky to be alive, she muttered, but Diana's eyes narrowed. Something about him felt wrong. Anyone know who he is? She asked. Everyone shook their heads. No one had ever seen him before. Then she spotted it. A worn leather strap on the man's wrist. A watch. But not just any watch. It was the same one she and Owen had picked out for his birthday. A gift from Nora. Engraved on the back were the words, "To Owen, for every moment with love." "No," she whispered, backing away. "No, no, no." The room went still. Claire leaned closer. "What is it?" Diana could barely speak. "That's Owen's watch." Gasps filled the room. Caleb clenched his fists. "You think this? This man, I don't know what to think," Diana cried. The stranger groaned in pain and stirred, unaware of the storm that was brewing around him. Rob, Claire's younger brother, stepped into the room just then. He had just come from the Fleming house with Jamie, who was pale and shivering. "What's going on?" Rob asked. Caleb turned to him, jaw tight. "We found him. He's got Owen's watch." Silence fell again. The man lay broken, helpless on their couch. But suddenly, he didn't look so helpless anymore. He looked dangerous. And none of them knew what to do next. Outside, the storm roared louder, as if warning them. This was just the beginning of the unraveling. The fire in the McCrae living room burned low, casting long shadows across the floor. Outside, the storm had not eased. Wind howled against the windows, and the old farmhouse creaked like it was trying to speak. Inside, nobody said a word. The stranger lay unconscious on the couch, wrapped in blankets, his leg bandaged. Every now and then he groaned or muttered nonsense in his sleep, but all eyes stayed fixed on one thing, the engraved watch on his wrist. Owen's watch. Claire stared at it in disbelief, her fingers cold and shaking. "That's not possible," she whispered. "He must have found it. Maybe at a pawn shop? Or maybe he took it," Caleb said, voice low and rough. "Maybe he was the one who did it." Diana stood by the fireplace, arms folded tightly across her chest. "I want him out of my house." "We can't move him," Claire said. "His legs shattered. He could die." "Good." Diana snapped before she could stop herself. Everyone went quiet. Jamie Fleming, who had been sitting on the floor with his back to the wall, finally spoke. "What if he's just a thief? What if he didn't kill them?" "That watch wasn't sold," Claire said. "Nora had it engraved before giving it to Owen. It never left his wrist." Rob stood in the doorway, wet from the rain, arms crossed. "Then we lock him in the shed. Tie him up if we have to. The police can sort this out." "Not tonight," Caleb said. "Roads are still flooded. Phones are down. We tried calling again, remember?" "So we wait," Rob muttered. The decision was made. The men carried the stranger out to the old goat shed behind the barn. They laid him on a pile of straw and chained the door shut from the outside. It wasn't kind, but kindness felt distant now. Back in the house, Diana poured herself a glass of whiskey. Claire watched her mother-in-law closely. The woman hadn't cried, not once, not even at the news of Owen's death. Instead, she carried her grief like a sword. "You think locking him up makes this better?" Claire asked gently. "No," Diana said, "but it keeps him from walking free." That night, no one slept. In the Fleming house, Moira sat in her armchair staring at the fireplace. She looked at her son, Jamie, who hadn't spoken since they got home. "You all right, love?" she asked softly. Jamie just nodded, but his eyes didn't meet hers. He had seen the man's face clearly. He hadn't told anyone, but when they pulled the stranger from the wrecked car, something about his eyes felt familiar. Not from town, not from school, but somewhere. His phone buzzed, a message from Claire. She had checked on the man in the shed. He was awake now. Jamie stood quickly. "I need some air." Before Moira could stop him, he grabbed a coat and disappeared into the night. Back at the McCrae house, Rob paced the kitchen. Claire sat at the table staring at her phone. "I've been talking to someone online," she said suddenly. "Okay?" Rob replied, unsure. "His name's Simon, just a friend. He's helped me through all of this just by listening." Rob gave her a strange look. "So, Why bring that up now? Because he knows everything. And I think someone's reading my messages. Rob raised an eyebrow. What makes you say that? I don't know, Claire said. Just a feeling. Meanwhile, in the goat shed, the stranger opened his eyes. His head throbbed. His leg was in agony. He was cold and damp, and he was locked in. The panic hit him fast. He started banging on the wall, shouting, begging to be let out. But the storm drowned out his voice, until someone opened the door. Jamie stepped inside, holding a flashlight. The two stared at each other. The man looked older up close. Worn down. Broken. You were in my sister's flat, Jamie said, voice quiet but firm. The man swallowed. I didn't mean to kill them. Jamie's face didn't change. They weren't supposed to be home, the man whispered. Just a job, quick grab and go, I didn't want to. She came in, he fought back, it just happened. What's your name? Jamie asked. Rory, he said. Who sent you? Rory hesitated. Then, just above a whisper, he said, I was hired. I don't know his name. He paid in cash. But I have his address. It's in the envelope. Jamie stepped back, unsure if he believed him. Back in the house, Diana found something strange while cleaning the fireplace. Hidden behind the logs was a knife. She held it up to the light and her hands trembled. That knife hadn't been there before. She called for Claire. Where did you find this? Claire asked, wide-eyed. In the hearth, in Rob's room. Claire's breath caught in her throat. Could it be? Had someone planted it? Outside, lightning flashed. Inside, the weight of hidden truths began to crack the walls. Morning arrived with an eerie stillness. The storm had passed, leaving behind a bruised sky and broken branches. Rainwater dripped from the barn roof in slow, steady beats like a ticking clock counting down to something no one was ready for. Inside the McCrae kitchen, Claire sat at the table, staring at the knife her mother-in-law had found. The blade was scratched, worn, but the sight of it brought back every horrible detail she had tried to forget. Are you sure it was in Rob's room? She asked. Behind the firewood, Diana replied, her voice low. I don't know what to believe anymore. Claire's heart raced. Rob had been distant lately. He had been angry, no, furious, after learning what had happened to Owen. Was it possible? Before she could ask more, Jamie burst into the room, soaking wet from head to toe. He's awake, he panted. His name is Rory. And he says someone paid him. Diana stood up so fast her chair scraped across the floor. Who? Claire demanded. He doesn't know, Jamie said. He says he has an address, in an envelope. Claire didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat and ran to the goat shed. Inside, Rory sat huddled in the corner, clutching his injured leg. He looked up when she entered. His face was pale, his eyes tired. I didn't mean to kill them, he said before she could speak. Who sent you? Claire asked. He reached into his coat and pulled out a damp, crumpled envelope. It's all I have. The man said if I did it clean, I'd get the rest when I got to this address. Claire took the envelope. Her eyes widened as she read the postal code. It was for someone in Glenhaven. Back at the Fleming house, Moira and Bill were arguing quietly. I still think we should have let the police handle this, Moira said, arms crossed. We're not trained to deal with this kind of thing. He showed up in our village, Bill replied. We couldn't just let him go. Moira hesitated, then said something she hadn't told anyone. Jamie, he's been acting strange. Before all this happened, I saw him reading Claire's messages. He had her login. Bill's eyes narrowed. At that moment, Rob returned home. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Claire met him outside and pulled him aside. We found the knife, she said, in your fireplace. Rob blinked, confused. What? I didn't hide any knife. Then who did? She asked. He didn't answer. And there's more, Claire continued. The man, Rory, says someone hired him. Someone local. Just then, A police car turned into the driveway. Claire froze. Two officers stepped out, including Constable Martin Frey. He looked more serious than usual. "We're here for Rory Cairn," he said. "We believe he's the one responsible for the deaths." Claire nodded, still holding the envelope. "You should see this." While the officers questioned, Rory, Claire, and Rob stood near the barn, away from the others. "If you didn't hide the knife," Claire asked softly, "who did?" Rob looked down. "I don't know, but I've been following someone." "Who?" "Graham Cairn," Rob said. He hurt someone close to me. I was watching him, trying to get proof." Claire didn't press. She could see the pain in his eyes. Back inside, Moira found Bill sitting at the kitchen table, staring at an old photo of Nora. "What if it's connected to something we don't know?" she whispered. "What if someone had a reason to stop them?" Bill didn't respond. Because he did know. That afternoon, Claire went to the local police station and gave the envelope to Sergeant Hollis, who promised to run prints and trace the address. As she left the station, her phone buzzed. A voicemail from her father's old number, the same one Owen had tried to call just before he died. The voice was broken. "Regretful. Claire, I should have said this sooner. But there's something I need to tell you about your brother." Her breath caught. Back at the McCrae farm, Diana watched Rob closely as he played with a small wooden box Owen had carved years ago. He didn't look like someone hiding a secret. He looked like someone holding one for someone else. That evening, while everyone gathered in silence, waiting for news, Claire received a call from the station. "We got a match on the fingerprints," Hollis said. "The person who wrote the envelope was Bill Fleming." The phone nearly slipped from her hand. She ran to the Fleming house, heart pounding. "Where's Bill?" Moira looked alarmed. "He's upstairs. Why?" But before Claire could answer, they heard the back door slam. Outside, in the fading light, they saw Bill walking toward the woods with a shotgun. "Stop him," Claire screamed. Everyone ran. They found Bill near the edge of the forest, standing, still shoulders heavy with shame. "I didn't mean for her to die," he said. "I just wanted Owen gone. When I found out about them being connected by blood, I couldn't let it continue." Moira gasped. "What are you saying?" "I hired him to scare Owen," Bill said, tears falling. "But Grace came home. Too early. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." Claire stared at him, speechless. "Every lie," he whispered, "buries the truth a little deeper. But truth always digs its way back." He dropped the gun. And just like that, the silence finally broke.